Right before we jump into this video, if you'd like to pick up any new or used camera gear, especially some of the things that I discuss in the video you're about to see, head on over to allenscamera.com because I support that mom and pop store because they've supported me at FroKnowsPhoto since the very beginning. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. And how many of you out there have old slides that have been in the family for a long time that you want to digitize, or you have a bunch of negatives that have been sitting around that you also want to digitize, but you're not sure how to do it? Well, Nikon has something called the Nikon ES-2 slide adapter kit that allows you to do exactly that. Take old slides, take old negatives, and scan them in essence while using your DSLR or mirrorless camera. Now, the camera that I have set up to do this is the Nikon Z7. Now, originally when they came out with the ES-2, they talked about how perfect it was with the Nikon D850, but it's not really the camera that matters as much as the lens that you're using. So Nikon recommends with this kit that you use the 60mm micro or macro lens. I'm using that right here, and it has this adapter right up here. This is the ES-2, what do they call this thing? The film digitizing adapter. That's right, the film digitizing adapter. You can see it has a white front so the light can shine through there. You slide the slide or the negative using the supplied negative carriers. This is a slide carrier. There are 2 slide slots, but also you have negatives right here that you could slide in through the camera. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negative spots, because I used to cut my negatives in 6. Some cut them in 5s, some cut them in 4s, some cut them in 2s and 1s, which wasn't exactly recommended. So like I said, I'm using the Nikon Z7 because it's the highest megapixel camera that I personally have from Nikon, which brings up a good question that some people have already asked me is, will this adapter work with a Sony? Will it work with a Canon or some other systems? And the answer is possibly. This ring right here is a 62mm filter ring. So if you have a lens that is 62mm, it also has a 52mm adapter. Then you can screw this ES-2 right onto the front of the lens and it should work. It slides in and out, so you can basically zoom in, zoom out to fill the frame, and if you're cutting things off, you can then pull back or push out so that you can then get more of the image in the frame. Now, you're using a full frame sensor, a very good full frame sensor that's 40-some megapixels to give me raw DNG files of slides or negatives. It's incredible. Now, keep in mind with the negatives, you will need to reverse it after you get it into the computer, and I'll show you how I do that at the end of this when we're reviewing some of the sample images. Now, the reason this came about is because I've been locked down like the rest of you guys for the last 2-3 weeks, and then I remembered that I bought a bunch of slide carriers at a vintage, or I don't know why I say vintage store, but at an antique store. One of these things are pretty cool. These were taken in 1962, I believe, and what's interesting is that there's descriptions for the images from the photographer. They typed them up on these 3x5 cards. That's pretty cool to have and see these images come to life. It's like having an Instagram post with the description and hashtags right there. There's that type of thing. I also collected a bunch of different slide carousels where there's different Kodachrome pictures, slides. Kodachrome's gorgeous, by the way. We're going to see that when we put it into the camera, as well as Ektachrome. And I also have my old negatives. So I'm going to scan one of my negatives or take a copy print or digitize some of my negatives to show you how that works. But I really love, if you've been following my Instagram's Jared Polin, by the way, you will see a bunch of different photo stories that I've done about these slides that I've pulled out to see how amazing they're. Like this slide right here, and it says it right on the front, exactly what it is. Now, that's like a description. That's awesome. This is something that I also want to photograph because this is important to the image. It's not just the image, but this says Athens, Greece, the Parthenon, Acropolis, September 1956. I wasn't born. My dad was like 7 or 8 years old at that time, so I wasn't even thought of. He hadn't hit puberty yet. It didn't even matter. But digitizing these are going to be incredible. So one other thing I need to show you before we get doing it is this is what you do. You put a LED light in front of it, and any LED light will do. I have this is from Aperture. We'll link it down below. I have it set to 100 brightness, so it's super bright because I want to keep the ISO down on the camera so I get the cleanest file possible. But I set it to 6500 degrees because I wanted the whitest light that I could possibly get from it. So the process that I'm going to use to do this, I'm going to turn Wi-Fi on in the Z7. I'm going to then use the iPad right here as my slide viewer that I can control the settings, changing the exposure depending on the image, and then take the photos right from here. So it gives me a large view, a view screen to look at. The way that you set this up right here with the Z7 is I use SnapBridge. So I've got to come over here, hit the menu, then I'm going to touch SnapBridge, Wi-Fi connection, and I'm going to establish a connection. Now, Canon has their picture control, Canon Picture Control, I believe is what it's called, and Sony has their Image Edge software. I don't even know what Sony's is called. I haven't checked it out in a long time. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go ahead and select the Z7. I don't want to pick the Z6 because I'm already using that to record this. So Z7 is this one. Boom, it's selected. Now we go into picture, what do they call this thing? Sometimes it does this where it like bounces around, and then once I bounce back in, it then goes ahead and connects. I want to make sure that we're in picture mode, and let's get started. So I'm going to take the slide adapter right here, take two of these slides, starting with the Acropolis in 1956. And for me, the Kodachrome ends up being the thing that faces the light, and the writing on it is what faces the camera. And I dropped it. Darn it. Oh, and it's starting to focus. So I'm going to pop this one in here. We're going to pop a second one in there. Let's see where this one is from. Damascus, Syria. August of 1956. Syria, all right? There's a good possibility that, well, that's been all unfortunately blown up. It's in rubbles. So let's take a look. This is how we do it. I have this. I've got the slide carrier ES-2 already set up. It clicks in. Watch this. Get it in the hole. Boom. And it stops at the first place. Now I just want to straighten it out just a little bit. It automatically stopped where I needed it to be, which is so good. Gonna get it straight. Let's touch the screen to get it focused. Holy amazing. Look at this. Now, if you don't know anything about Kodachrome, Kodachrome used like dyes to give you the greatest color that you could ever have. And you're going to see in just a minute that the Ektachrome that I have here is not very good when it comes to color. But look at this. This is from 1956, and look at how it held up. It did not lose anything. That's like 66, 76, 86, 96, 2006, 2016, and 4 more years is 64 freaking years ago. That is insane. I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to do a whole story on these Kodachromes that I picked up here in another video. This is more to show you how it works. Let me cut in here real quick and let you know that the images that you're seeing on the screen right now were edited with FroPack 2. If you're looking to speed up your raw workflow or give yourself a great starting point, we created 15 all-new custom Lightroom presets that you can check out right now at FroKnowsPhoto.com/FroPack2. Over there, you can play with the sliders to see the befores and the afters, and if you decide to pick them up right now, they are currently on sale for a limited amount of time. Now, if you want to pick up FroPack 1, FroPack 2 as the FroPack bundle, you can save even more. Now, let's get back to the video. All right, so we've got this. I guess my exposure is already set. 1/100th of a second looks good. 5.6. It only needs to focus right on the slide itself. I hit the button right here. Boom. I take the picture, push this into the next one. Now keep in mind, this is a slow process. It's going to take a while, so you may not do every single slide or negative that you have, but you just understand you should probably try and pick the ones that you want to do first. All right, so here's this one. Let's change the exposure. Actually, let's take one here. I want to show you why. Because this is perfectly exposed for outside. There, I take that picture. That's 1/100th of a second. Let's go all the way down to like 1/10 and see what happens. Do you see there are people underneath the overhang in shadows? Now, something they didn't have back then was HDR. The ability to do HDR in Lightroom, because Lightroom didn't exist. Most computers didn't exist just yet. So I've discovered that if I have an image that is, exposed right for outside, but there's stuff in the shadows, there's details there, I'm gonna take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different exposures and then merge them together in Lightroom. And I'll show you how to do that at the end of this video, but we're gonna pull out more dynamic range from these slides. It's kind of mind-blowing. So let's go actually even slower. Let's go right there. We're still focused right here. So there's that. Now let's go to 1/10 of a second. There's that. I'm gonna add 1/20th. We've already done 1/100th, so I'm gonna work my way up there. 1/50th. We did 1/100th, so let's go past 1/100 and do like 1/250th. Give us as much detail as possible. So there's how you do that. So that's how you do the slides. You're done. I'm gonna push them back through. These are done, and then you would basically swap them out again. So I'm gonna swap these out, and I'm gonna swap in these next two. One of them is Ektachrome. You're gonna see what it looks like. This says Hong Kong Kids, February 1956. Wow. So that's 1956. And then this image is Bangkok, 1956. All right, let's throw these in. We'll see the difference. Oh man, look at the color. See the color shift on this? Just making sure I got everything straight because I want to have all of the file in there. Wow. So this is a color slide, but it's not looking too good. We're going to see if we can bring back the color later, but look how much it shifted. I want to make sure that's focused. Let me do it again. But watch this. Boom. Oh. Let's just change the exposure. Wow. Look at the colors. Look at the colors on this. So the two are different. Obviously, Kodachrome holds up so well compared to the Ektachrome. So that's how you do the slides. We'll put this to the side. Oh, there's so many cool slides. I'm not going to scan this, but let's see. Let's see randomly. Let's pick this and see what it says. Because this is the fun thing about it. This says Jordan, Jerusalem, 1956. This person was a world traveler. So follow my stories on Instagram and also look for this documentary style video that I'm going to do. Maybe it's like Vivian Mayer. Maybe it's probably not because they're not as good at Vivian Mayer's stuff was really good. But now let me show you what we do with the negative. I put the negative in here. It took me a couple of tries to get it flat and to look right. But finally it worked. The door swings open, you pop it down. For me, I made a note and it says light. So this is the light. The dull side is to the light. The shiny side, so the dull side's your emulsion, at least I'm pretty sure. I remember all that from back in the day. And the shiny side faces the lens. So that's the shiny side, that is the dull side. All right, I'm gonna slide this in here. We're gonna take a look at these negatives, which are mine from when I shot concerts. And I'll show you this in a second. Let's go with this. Pulling it back just a little bit because I don't want to cut anything off, you know, because me and cropping is not a thing. So let's see if I zoom this out a little bit. There, I zoomed it out just a little bit. Okay, all right. There we go. Gonna focus on John Bon Jovi. This is Fuji Press 800 speed film. In 2003, I shot this probably with my Nikon F5. Let's see with the exposure. Now everything's gonna be backwards, remember? So I wanna get as much, Wait. This is the confusing part. This is the confusing part. I'm just gonna make it look good, the right amount, because it's super confusing. You got to think of everything backwards when it comes to a negative. So I'm going to take the picture. So now I have a raw file of this negative that I can go ahead and bring into the computer and reverse to give me the color image. So that's pretty cool. I also meant to say that I'm using the switch pod here to hold up this camera. So how cool is this? How cool is it that you can take old slides that have been sitting around or been in the family for a long time, or your negatives, and go ahead and digitize them into RAW files using this ES-2 adapter from Nikon. Like I said, it probably will work with a Sony, it probably will work with a Canon, you just have to find the right lens. The links are down below where you can go ahead and purchase them. Alan's Camera may have some in stock at some point. I know they had a bunch on order. You can check them out. They're my local store. That's where I go and support the mom and pop store. I'll have links to everything else that I used in this, but what I want to do right now is I want to jump into the computer to show you what the images look like in Lightroom. Now let's jump into the computer and let's start with the Acropolis. So here it is. You can see how I filled in the entire frame, use as many megapixels as possible. That was my goal here, was to get as much detail as possible for the RAW file. So here's the RAW file. I mean, the colors look great. Things to be careful about, you gotta make sure that you could use some compressed air to clean the negative or to clean the slide so that you don't end up with a lot of dust. But of course, with Lightroom, it's really easy to do this. Like, you don't have to do anything much. I mean, I'll just move it here and boom. Now we just got rid of that. So obviously it takes time to clean things up, but this is what it looks like. You now have all of this data. You can play with the file. You can tweak it. You can do some sharpening, some clarity, some punching of the colors. You know, obviously you can play with the shadows. You have so much to work with. These pictures have never been digitized before, and a lot of your images or slides that you have in the family haven't been digitized before. So this is a great way to get a RAW file to save them for the future, but also make prints or just show people. Because honestly, some of these from 1956 are not in focus, they're not sharp, but a lot of it has to do with the gear, and I'm not here to critique the photographer, excuse me, who took them. Now the next one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different images of one slide, just playing with the dynamic range. The way that you do this, you take these multiple exposures, you select them, you right click, and right here you would go Merge Hdr. I went ahead and already did that because it takes a minute or two, and then this is what it gave me. Is it perfect? No, not by any stretch of the imagination, but let's look at the other exposure, because that's what we had. You could have this was more close, and then this was Damascus, by the way, Syria. This is unbelievable that we have this picture right here of Syria, a Syrian street that looks beautiful. I mean, it looks amazing to be out on this street. Not right now, but back then it would have been very interesting. So, you know, trying to pull it back with just one image isn't really as easy as you do with 6. So obviously you can tweak it as much as you want. Maybe I'll put up these RAW files, you guys can play with them and tweak it any way that you see fit. But this is just showing you what you can do. You can bring out more detail. Now it's a little more balanced, there's more color, there's more saturation, a little more vibrant. Not a little more in focus, but again, you're talking about slides 1956. Let me jump in here real quick and let you know that this video is brought to you by Squarespace. When I'm ready to put up this documentary as well as sample images, I'm gonna create a separate Squarespace site because it's super easy, it's affordable, and I don't need to know coding. To get your 14-day free trial, head on over to squarespace.com/FroKnowsPhoto. If you decide that it's for you, use the code FroKnowsPhoto at checkout to get 10% off your first order. This image right here is the Ektachrome. Ektachrome, I sent this over to Steven to make me a preset, and watch this. Boom. He tweaked it a little bit. Now, of course, you can't tweak exposure, but that's what it looks like. There is some color there. This is color slide film. And so you're able to save it. Is the focus saved? No, it's back focused, but whatever, this isn't about that. It's amazing that a point in time was captured. The colors, the saturation of the Kodachrome is gorgeous. I just wish it was more in focus, the guy's settings. Now what I want to do right now is show you some other images that I captured before I tweaked the ES-2 to be filling the frame as much as possible. I honestly didn't realize you could do that until I was like pulling on it a little bit and it extended. That's generally what happens if you pull on it long enough. Anything more than 2 shakes, you know what they say about it. But I extended it and here you go. This is what we got. So this is what it looked like before. I didn't realize that I could extend it. But look how amazing this is. This is, I believe it's at Pakistan, or yes, Pakistan. This is gorgeous. A little bit of issue up here, but you could fix all of that. Just amazing. It's just amazing watching this stuff come to life. This was in India, I believe, and it said bear. This is a bear doing tricks. This is a monkey down here. This is a kid. This is a monkey over there. This is insanity. I mean, this is a look back through history. That's why I'm going to look through this entire archive of the 3 carousels. There's like 80 negatives or slides in each carousel. One of them has about 40, and go through and turn it into a story. Go through the other one where it has the descriptions that the person wrote about going to Israel and on their different journeys where they went. It's so cool to have the photographer's words there typed up on 3x5 cards. It's incredible. So this was one of the interesting shots that I came up with. This was another one that we corrected. This is where it came in at with the Ektachrome, and that's the color correction. When I turned this one, I pulled this out, it's like the Sphinx. Oh my God. So that's cool. Kids out on the street, refugee camp, I believe they said, refugee kids. 1956. 1956. Just, this photographer, I don't know anything about him. I'm gonna try and find him. I think he was probably a sailor in the Navy and ended up all over the world being stationed in many different places. And so I'm going to try and find as much information out about that person as possible and put that into the video. But I hope you see that you can do this if you have some downtime, and you can get an ES-2 slide adapter. There's other ways that you can do this. You can take a macro lens, you can take an LED light, you can put the slide on it or negative, and you can set up a tripod and shoot straight down. The thing is, you need to be able to keep the thing flat. If you can keep the negatives flat, if you can keep the slides flat, then you should be able to get a straight on flat image and get a raw file. And so this is the ES-2 from Nikon. I use the Z7. You could use your Z6. You could use your D3500. You can use any DSLR or mirrorless camera as long as you have the right lens on it. Get the adapter, play around with it. My setup was pretty simple, and this was fun. I've been wanting to do this for 4 years. I bought this stuff like 4 years ago and didn't do anything with it. So any questions, leave them down below. Raw file links down below. You can play with some of these files and see what you come up with. Thank you very much for watching. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.